Good evening. Good evening.
There's the star of the show.
Yeah. So let me
How
say
y'all
hello to
doing?
everybody. We got SS Jello Chicken in the house. We got Matt. We got Greenwell. We got River Rat 3030. Fish On. And if you look, Greenwell and Fish On are 3+1 channel members. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Danny Stone Outdoors. He says the final member of the River Rats. So, see who else. We got Steve Ransom in here. And we got Big Wrench. Big Wrench is also a 3+1 Outdoors channel member. Thank you, Big Wrench. So, but like Daddy said, we got the star of the show, Mr. Jerry Parker. How's it going, Jerry?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
We're doing good, doing good. We was actually just backstage looking over Navionics. So, I think all three of us are in the same boat. Is if we get a free
Oh yeah.
minute, we talk. We still just thinking about catfishing. Sitting here, heck, Jerry come up and I had it pulled up, and he's like, "Heck, I'm gonna study that with you. Let's look at it." Always a good time to talk about fishing, ain't it?
Brian
Definitely.
D. and Robin C.
Cody Abney, how's it going? Well, you are the final member of the Mississippi River Rats.
Well, you saved the best looking for last.
There you go. And the one with the biggest PB, is that right?
My PB is 93. Yeah.
93
That's a
pounds.
monster.
Well, give us a little tidbit of that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that particular day, it was September, and the river had been stable. It was actually on our gauge. It was reading right about 12.5 on our Chester gauge, and I was been fishing a series of wing dams. We're about hot and heavy for that week. There was a bunch of buffalo and moon eye had moved up onto these current seams, and for about a week there, I had some unreal fishing. And that particular day, I got out there at daybreak, never had a hit, but there was no fish, there was no activity, no bait fish coming up. And then about 11 o'clock, a bunch of bait fish started coming up. Then boom, I ended up catching a 93, an 88, and a 77 that day.
Wow.
And then I came home. I was done. I was like, man, I just had the best day of fishing for big fish in my life. My buddy's like, we gotta go. So we went back out that night and caught a pair of 60s and a 40 and a couple in the 20s that night. And then I went a couple days later. I hung into another fish. I had a Asian carp head that was probably the size of a coffee can. I don't know what that fish was, but it ripped about 80 yards of drag, and I never could turn him, and it came off. So,
Cody, you've muted yourself.
Yeah, the dogs is barking. Sorry. Wife was getting them under control.
I couldn't imagine catching a 77, what'd you say, 77, 88, and a 93 in the same day, and then
Yep.
go back and catch some in the 60s. And the
I actually got
smallest fish.
videos of both those. It's back from like a couple years ago, but I've got a couple videos from those 2 days. It was phenomenal. I had about a month period there. The river was stable. It very fluctuated, very little, and the fish were just packed in there. And so it was just one of those things. All the stars aligned, and everything was just perfect. So,
What's Miss Stephanie talking about here? She says, I hear this guy face palms midgets.
well, she attacked me last Sunday, and I had to grab her by the hood and pull over her head. I was defending myself. Well, she was all bundled up in Richard bibs, and gosh, I wish I could have recorded it. Pulled down, and she looked like a turtle in rocks. She's sitting there. Couldn't get up.
That's funny.
So, well, we might have one or two in here. I think everybody's pretty familiar with it. We should have started with it. Tell us where you fish.
I mainly fish the Mississippi River. With that being said, I am a multi-species guy. I fish for everything, but catfishing is my true passion. But mostly the Mississippi and the Kaskaskia River are the two primary spots I fish most of the time. So, and like I said, I got joined up with a great bunch of guys Danny Stone, Richard Cluck, and Jeremy DeFore, River Rat, amazing group of guys, and it's just we're able to bounce back and forth ideas. We're constantly messing back and forth, like the Navionics thing, Google Earth, and just it's really helped us out a lot as a team working together. This year, hopefully, it's going to be a good year. We struggled last year we had the second lowest level in history on the river. So a lot of our traditional spots were not paying off because it was just so low. And a lot of us had to go out of our comfort zone. And like Richard, he upgraded to a boat, and holy cow, he has caught fire. Richard's going to be a force to be reckoned with now. So that kind of got a spur under me. So I'm actually setting up a river john myself.
Yeah, I was about to say. So I think Jerry's realized too that bank fishing stinks. And
Well, nope. I even with a boat, you're still gonna find me in a bank. I love bank fishing, but there are times it's gonna help be mobile. So it's just like, yeah, I'll always be a bank fisherman at heart. I'll be honest, even with the boat, I'm probably gonna use a lot of time just to get to places I can't get to, and probably bank fish. Like I have an island that's a few miles downriver to me. I used to be able to get to it by the levee, and the fishing, like right now, the way the river's levels are, if it's stabilized, it's phenomenal. I have caught some unbelievable fish in there, but I can't get to it anymore because the levee district has closed that area, so I can't get to it by land. But with a boat, I can run up in there and get off one of these little dikes and still fish it now. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I'm hoping I got service and I can share it with you guys.
So,
Go ahead.
well, no, you go ahead. You're fine.
I was just saying, so as a bank fisherman, share with us some things you look for to pick out a spot from the bank.
All right. In my stretch river, I fish a lot of wing dams. And not all your wing dams are created equal. Because I am a big believer in like say you have a series up here, they usually run a series of 5. I am a firm believer in that first and your last wing dike are a lot of times your best ones because it's just like a stopping off point for the fish up and down river. They'll come in there in those current seams and feed. But sometimes the scour hole, you got to look for the scour holes. Sometimes they'll be right at the base of the dike, and sometimes they'll be out there a bit. And your Navionics, it works to some point, but I'll actually kind of employ a bumping technique. I'll throw out there and bounce, about a 4 to 5 ounce weight until I feel it go down into it, so I have an idea. But on a wing dike, you always got your outside current seam and your inside current seam. And I always have a line or 2 on the outside, 1 on the inside. But then as night progresses, I'll start moving rods more towards the bank area. Can hit in our section where we have a ton of Asian, which that's everywhere, a ton of Asian carp and stuff. But a lot of times, them blue cat and flathead will start at night. As the night goes on, we'll start coming in behind them wing dams to look for them Asian carp. And I also look for creek mouths. I love fishing those creek mouths because you usually have a nice scour hole, and those fish will transition in and out, especially with spring coming on now. You have the flood; it's flooding. With all the flooding, Danny, Richard will tell you this: it is extremely difficult to find a bank spot a lot of times in the spring on the main river. You got so much debris, and those fish, they don't like that heavy current any more than we do. Right. So they will move up into those creek mouths. And I have had some phenomenal luck in some little creeks that probably ain't 30 yards wide. And then fish will come up in there. And I also look for, in the main river, I look for your inside bends, your cut banks, big riprap banks, and ideally with a flat with access to shallow water. Right. That's some of the few things I do look for.
Right.
So, and you say it, and we look for access to shallow water a lot too, and we fish that shallow water a lot. But I want it to have access to that deeper channel which we don't have to worry about the current, but those fish are traveling those channel ledges. They use those ledges as if like a highway or something. But then
you guys deer hunt, the way I kind of look at catfish the same way I do deer. I look for pinch points, funnels, ledges, benches. Them catfish are just like deer. They'll travel basically the same patterns. And so that's one of the things I kind of combine the two together. So,
And that
Yeah,
makes a lot of
cut 'em
sense.
off.
so
Well, you go ahead. We'll ask a basic question, and I pretty much know the answer to it. But what's the baits you love to use? Like, what would be your number one? Give us like top three.
all right, that's kind of a loaded question because it's going to depend on the time of the year.
Right.
That's going to depend on the time of year. Like right now, being the dead of winter, shad, chicken, and carp are my three baits for winter. But now, once that water temperature starts getting into the upper 50s and on, skipjack, moon eye, and cut carp or buffalo are my top three.
So you use a lot of cut carp.
Yes. Yep. I have great luck on buffalo and carp. So,
Okay, so just your common carp, or do you use the Asians? Because I know that's
I do
they're
use
abundant.
Asian occasionally, but I prefer common carp because it's bloodier. It has a lot more blood content to it, and that I think is the big thing that really helps. So, and that's more my summertime, like midsummer to later on. Bait is when I start really using carp a lot.
Uncle Jeep says you go after catfish just like deer? Question mark with a 30-06.
Like shooting fish in a barrel.
Big Wrench, thank you. Yeah, everybody, go ahead and hit that thumbs up, and the link to Jerry's channel's in the description. If there's somebody in here that hadn't actually checked him out before, and he also has a Tic Tac channel. He is a Tic Tacker.
Yeah.
But we're not going to give him a hard time about it because he actually does really good on there. Puts on a great show. He runs his Tic Tac channel just like he does his YouTube lives. He sits there, he interacts with chat, he makes it about fishing. So that's a great place to check him out too. Danny says, "Oh Lord, he's going to say chicken."
Danny's not much of a chicken guy, but Richard, he has caught some phenomenal fish on chicken. And actually, this past winter, I caught the biggest fish I've ever caught on chicken. It was actually doing where I showed. I caught a 72-pounder on chicken just a few weeks ago.
72 on chicken.
A couple fish in the 50s, a few in the 40s, and some 30s already this winter. So.
Now, we've caught plenty of fish on chicken, and if I don't have any other bait, I don't mind using it. But it's pretty far down on the list of baits I want to use.
Well, here's kind of my take on it. It doesn't work in every body of water. I'm convinced of that. I seem to work in your body's water that has a high mussel or clam population, because I believe it's the closest thing that simulates mussel meat. And plus, the chicken has a lot of aminos and protein that fish are picking up on that smell. So it gets a lot of scent on it. And a lot of guys swear by chicken during hot weather. It's the exact opposite for me. I hardly use it in hot weather. In the winter, it's like one of my number one wintertime baits.
Yeah, I think what times we have used chicken, we've had better luck on it in the winter than we did summer.
All right. Well, I ask you this, since we're going to get on the chicken talk, as much as I hate to get on it. So are you a marinated chicken or a straight chicken?
Okay. Now, if I'm fishing Baldwin Power Plant Lake or lake, I will marinate because for some reason it seems like it does better. But now, if I'm fishing the river, I use plain boneless chicken thighs is what I use, and I don't do nothing to it. So,
I've not noticed a big difference from putting Jello or Kool-Aid or garlic powder. I've not noticed a huge difference putting any of it on it.
well, Brad says it perfect right there. It doesn't work everywhere. Because I have tried it in different spots and absolutely no success. I've had luck in the Kaskaskia, the Mississippi, the Missouri River, Baldwin Lake, and there's a couple other lakes, and that is about it. And other places, no luck at all. But go ahead.
I think you touched on it a while ago. I think if you have a population of mussels in your water, then it's a good bait. If there's probably no mussels in your water, then it's probably not that good of a bait.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know about that though, because there's no skipjack in our water, and it's a great bait.
Yeah, skipjack's kind of a, like I said, it's the same way. I went to certain body of water and couldn't buy a bite off of it. But then other lakes and stuff I've been to that doesn't have skipjack, I've done pretty good with it. So, well, prime example, we when we was in Mendota last year, Richard actually broke some skipjack out and was whacking some really nice channel cat on it. But then once we got back to the boat ramp, we found out there was actually, it wasn't skipjack, but there was a freshwater herring in that lake. So we're like, well, maybe that's the correlation right there between the two.
I don't know that we have any herrings, do we, Daddy?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I don't think it replicates any bait that we have in our lake. Most of our fish come on skipjack. I just think that I mean, all right, I've never seen tiramisu other than on TV, but if I smelled it, I'm sure I'd know it was food.
Well, the one thing about skipjack is
I mean,
so oily, and it just puts out such a scent trail.
There
You know,
right. There's plenty of foods out there that I've never smelled that if I smelled them, I'd still think they smelled good. Just because it doesn't recognize it doesn't mean it doesn't know it's food.
well, I've caught shark on skipjack. And part of I know there's no skipjack in the ocean, but I have caught shark on skipjack. So,
Well, we use ladyfish for shark when we're there, and to me, a ladyfish is just like a skipjack. There's not a big difference in them. The meat, the body composition. I mean, they're pretty similar in all of those areas in my eyes.
big old Jack Crevalle is probably one of my favorite shark baits.
Jack Crevalle. I caught a bunch of baby Jack Crevalle last time we were down. I mean, I was catching them left and right, but just like little 8-inch jacks, nothing. But they must have just been running the surf hot and heavy because I caught the fire out of them.
Man, the big ones, whoo, they'll put a hurting on some tackle. Big ones will.
Believe it. Yeah, I mean, they get really sizable. They get to be a really good sized fish too. So.
Yeah, I even tried. I tried some chicken when we were down there surf fishing, but I never caught nothing on it.
Which is crazy because the ocean is full of clams and mussels. Full of
Right.
it. So
I think maybe some of them hardheads may have pecked on it a little bit, but I never got
They'll eat
nothing to take off.
well, excuse the language, but I think you could put a dog turd on a hook and catch some hard heads.
Yeah.
Me and Daddy went down there. We was filming. I said it in one of the videos. I said, I never thought I'd say I'm tired of catching catfish, but I wish these things would go on somewhere.
Oh, they get down on it. That every once in a while you'll get the gaff tails too, but they can be kind of, especially if you're trying to catch some whiting or something.
Yep.
And they, especially after dark, it'll be just one right after another.
Let's see here. Uncle Jeep says the reason chicken works in Kentucky is quite simple. Colonel Sanders loved to feed the fish with bits of pieces of his secret recipe. Even fish love KFC. Welcome in, Ronnie Oakley, and welcome in everybody I hadn't said hi to. Connor's Outdoors, Shirley T. Thank y'all all for being here. If anybody has some questions they won't ask to Jerry, drop them in chat. I'll be sure get them asked to him for y'all.
Yeah.
So, let me and I've never. It's kind of a basic question again, but I've never heard your answer to it, so I'd like to hear it. You get to fish the mighty Mississippi. That's on a lot of people's bucket list. What's on your bucket list?
I would really like to go to South America and fish some of those rivers. Redtail, peacock bass, arapaima, some of the different species. It would just be, and plus just to get away out in the middle of nowhere, with nobody around. I think it would be it would definitely be a once in a lifetime trip. It
would be special for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any arapaima here, but you can go to Florida and catch peacock bass and redtail now.
I have caught peacock bass in Florida before in some of the canals. No big ones, but I have caught peacock bass down there before.
They're even getting redtail now where people have let them go out of aquariums and the water's just warm enough for them to survive there.
Well, you start getting down like the Glades, Orlando. You got cichlids, you got Oscars. You got everything in those canals. It's hard to tell what's in there.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and those are all aquarium fish that have been
Yeah.
that have been transported here. Brought in, and they've gotten released, and they have a lot of invasive species down there that have become a problem.
Yes.
Yes. Speaking of the Oscars, I was just talking to him the other day. He said his family lives down in Florida, and he said he went and seen them, and he said they sat and caught so many Oscars they filled 4 coolers up with them, and then they just all got together and just formed a assembly line cleaning them. And the way they talk, they're pretty good to eat.
I didn't know people eat those Oscars.
Yeah,
Chad, I don't think your red tail would probably ever make it up in our rivers because it seems like they're a tropical warm fish. I don't think they do very well. Like if they
Right.
came north.
Right. Yeah, I don't know because they're native to the southern countries and southern waters outside of the United States, like truly southern, and I don't know that they can make it anywhere other than maybe Florida, because I don't even think they're in the upper part of Florida. But if you go down to the Everglades and stuff, some of those ponds down there and rivers and stuff have them in there. So welcome in, Ricky. So while I'm waiting to see what everybody wants to ask in chat, Daddy, you go on with the next question.
Well, one of my questions would be is talk about the barometer. Do you think the barometer affects your fishing in the river much?
100%. 100%. Because your high pressure days, because it's that opposite of deer, like deer hunting, you want those high pressure days.
Yep.
Fishing, exact opposite. You want those low pressure days. You get bluebird skies, high pressure, it's a killer. It really is. Then if you mix a cold front end, it's going to be tough. Like I'm fishing Josh Dunnigan's Weekend Angler. He's got a tournament Sunday. I'm fishing that bracket bass. It's going to be in the 30s and high pressure. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough, I think. So.
Yeah. I know here it seems like if the pressure gets over
30.3.
Yeah, 30.3, the bite really just goes to nothing. And at
Yes.
30.2, I'm not going to say it's going to be good.
Right.
But usually if you can get it 30.1 or down to 29, I think 29.7, I would say 29.7, 29.8 would be my ideal spot.
Yep, just low, but only a little low, and it seems to be the money spot. Jello says, fishing twice at Baldwin with Jerry. I'm pretty sure he ran a 4-minute mile when pulling a wagon. No man can even keep up at 8 a.m. Well, and I talked to Danny Stone quite a bit, and he says that about Jerry. He says, I love bank fishing. He said, but I don't do what Jerry does. Jerry, I'll get tired of walking. Say, all right, the next good current seam, whatever I see that I like to fish, I'm fishing. He said, Jerry's on a mission. He don't care if he's got to walk 15 miles. He's got all his tackle and arm, and he's walking the 15 miles if that's where he said he was going.
That's most of my spots around here. I don't have very good access, with the exception like where I took Danny and Richard this past Sunday. That's it, like literally the easiest spot I have. Most time I'm parking a quarter mile, half mile away from my spots, which really sucks when we do these live streams because you're packing lights, your tripod, you got 4 or 5 rods, you've got a bait cooler, you got a backpack with weights, rod holders. It's it keeps you young.
All right.
Jared or High and Muddy Fishing says, better question is high pressure enough to keep you from going fishing?
Nope.
Neither.
The thing is, I work a lot of hours, a lot of crazy hours. When I get a chance to fish, I'm fishing. And I'll be honest, I've had some days where I thought it was just going to absolutely suck because the high pressure bluebird and end up having a good day.
Yeah.
So.
And I would say the exact same thing is it's not going to keep me from going ever. But it is nice to know because it may change how I fish a little more. If the pressure's really high, I'll bounce around a little bit more. If we drag the first quarter of a drag and hadn't got any bites, I'm telling Daddy, hey, let's go somewhere else because I want to go to where those few fish that it isn't bothering are feeding. So you just hunt them a little harder because you know the bite's going to be harder.
Mm-hmm.
But you still go because it's not just because the bite's going to be slower. Don't mean you ain't going to catch something because we've caught fish, on very high pressure days. They just, it's just a little slower. So Miss Lisa Elliott says, if you could only spare one tip with a new catfish angler, what would it be? Give you a second think on that. Let you make it a good one.
Persistence. Be persistent. I mean it's, like I said, it's kind of a loaded question too because there's so many things. Like YouTube is a valuable, valuable, valuable tool for an upcoming catfish angler. And don't go out and spend a ton of money on gear until you know you're going to commit with it. You can go to Walmart and buy an ugly stick rod, a Zepco 808, and maybe have 70, 80 bucks in it. And just start out with the basics, Start out like fishing maybe some lakes, some farm ponds with your liver and stuff like a prepared bait. Get a few channel cat and stuff under your belt, and then graduate on to the other species. So,
I mean, right here in my little avatar picture, let's see here. That fish there was 40 something pounds. It was caught on a $16 loose cat daddy rod and reel that came pre-spooled with 15-pound test. It had nothing but a leader tied on it. I didn't change the line. I didn't change anything. Now, obviously, I would prefer to have nicer gear, but you don't have to have it. You can catch them on anything. You just set that drag a little looser, go out there, have fun. Don't horse the fish. That's a big thing. I know when you hadn't caught very many of them and you get a good known, your instincts I got to get him in before he comes off. But that I got to get him in before he comes off makes him come off.
Well, when I first started fishing, I grew up next to the river. And when I was a kid, didn't have a lot of money. One of my first catfish outfits was a South Bend rod. I think I paid $10 for. It had the action of a freaking pool cue. A Zepco 808 with Omni Flex line. I paid 99 cents for. And I got 30-pound test. And I got to where when I was younger, when I started figuring these bigger cat out, I'd hook a big cat. I'd have to walk back like 30 foot and run fast I could toward the water, cranking like crazy. To start walking backwards and run to the water and crank,
So, and another tip I would say is, and I wish I did this when me and Daddy first got into hunting these big fish with rod and reel, was keep a log. Nothing's a coincidence. If it happens 2-3 times in a row, and you've got a log, because you'll forget, even if it only happened a couple weeks ago, you'll forget the minute details. Keep up with that stuff.
Your bigger fish are night and day from your teeners. They're night and day fish. When they do something, they do it for a reason.
Right.
So, and Ricky says, Jerry, would a golf cart or a gator help you get to your fishing spots?
That is a big negative. I'm usually walking through a lot of timber, across railroad tracks, and through creeks and stuff to get to most of my spots. So,
and right here, I like this by Brad. He says, get your fundamentals down. Rigs, knots will make or break you, no matter what you're using. If you don't tie I don't care what pound test line you're using, the knot is the weak point. It's cutting into itself to some degree. Learn to tie a good knot. And you don't have to go up to 50-pound main line. We use 30-pound main line. I trust it to get anything, anywhere in. As long as you got your drag set right, you can get something in. Obviously, you heavy cover.
Check that after a few casts or fish or two. Man, check that first 15, 20 foot of your main line. Because you got rock stuff. Because all it takes is that one little nick, and it costs your fish a lifetime.
Right.
Yeah, because that one scratch in that line will make that 30, 40-pound test line go down to 5-pound test line in a heartbeat.
Yes.
Right. And and when you break off, if you break off, burn some line. You're going to burn some line. I pull off 10 yards of line sometimes. Until I see it doesn't look like it's been stretched anymore, just you don't be scared to waste some line. It's just part of fishing.
I'll be honest, on the height, like when I'm really hitting the river hard, I'll spool all my rigs once a month. I re-spool everything once a month. Cause I fish all those wing dikes and there's rocks, and I'll pull in a lot of time. I'll have 30, 40 yards with just nicks and birds all up and down it. So I go through some line.
Well, you fish a lot of trash too, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So, got to know the conditions and what you're dealing with. Me and Daddy fish a lot of mud flats. We don't re-spool near as often as what he's talking about, but we're also not fishing those conditions. Mud flats don't beat up on your line like when he's out fishing all the. Well, also, even if he's fishing an area that's not got a bunch of riffraff, he's just got a bunch of stuff floating down river all the time into his line too.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of good knots out there. But I tell you what, I still use a clinch knot a lot. I snail all my hooks and I crimp all my leaders, but I tie my main line onto my swivel using a clinch knot. I know there's stronger knots out there, but I'm comfortable tying it. I like the way it ties, and I've never had any problem with it. I've never had it break on me. So
I use like an improved trialing knot, a double lower is what I use to tie my swivels, but all my hooks snelled. Cause I almost exclusively run circle hooks unless I'm throwing big live baits. Then I'll go with like a big J style hook or river style hook. Yes, Big Ranch. That's one thing that'll tick me off is when I walk to a fish spot and I see what people have thrown their trash and line. Because there's been several occasions I've found birds and stuff. I've had to get out of line and stuff, you know.
And Kentucky Catfishing says, always check that drag. Make sure it is not too tight. Yeah, and I know you're going to get it in your mind that, oh, it was set last time I used it. That drag will tighten up after it's set, even for just a week. And not tighten up because it almost feel like it's froze. You might have to back it off, pull some out, and then readjust it. But double check it every time you go out.
One of the things I really like about, I'm a big Abu Garcia guy, but I've started using Ancient Mariners too, and I also have some pins. But most of your Abus have got 17 pounds of drag. So if I can usually dang near have them all the way tight, if I hook a good fish over 40 pounds, it'll usually start pulling drag. You know, and I don't have to mess with it, but I do always give it a few pulls to make sure everything is working order.
I keep my drag set where if it's a 15-pound fish, he's pulling drag. I can tighten it up if I want. I know that at that tightness that I know that it'll still get a decent hook set, but I don't ever, it can pull drag if it wants to. And most always I end up tightening it up right off the bat, but it's not a problem. You know, star drag, you take your thumb, smack it a few times, and you're good to go. On the looser side is better than being too tight. And, you know, the being too tight, snap your line. Being too loose, you just got to tighten it up a little bit. Long as it's tight enough to get a good hook set. And Brad says, Cody, is it true Larry lands the big fish on the boat? Well, I caught the last 50-pounder that was put in the boat, and I think I've caught the biggest fish of 2023 so far. So it might be true sometimes, but it's not true right now. For most of 2021 and 2022, yeah, it seemed, and it's bull crap. It's bull crap because the way me and Daddy do it is we don't have his rods, my rods. We just go, he'll catch one, I'll catch one, he'll catch one, I'll catch one. And I caught a lot of good fish, but every time a 50 bit, it was on his turn. And it was so frustrating. Until the end of the year, and then on Mike Greenwell's live, I finally broke into the 50-pound club. But it was like every time I'd catch a 30, be happy, and the next one bite be at 50. I'm like, well, why couldn't you have got the 30 and I got the 50? You know.
And then there was that one time we were fishing and we had a double up, and I was running the
I don't want to hear his story again.
and he decides when he gets that fish in, he runs back and grabs the other rod, says, "No, your hands are full. I'm getting this one too." So we kept on fishing. Rod went down. I got that next fish. Well, then the rod went down again. I said, "No, you got two in a row. I'm going to get two in a row." And that was a 50.
Yeah. I said, man, it would have actually been my turn if I hadn't cheated him out of a fish. And I was happy because they were both in the 20s. I was like, all right, yeah, I just caught two 25-pound fish. Heck yeah, doubled up on them. And then he catched like a 5-pound fish, and then one got smoked. And I'm like, it's my turn. He's like, nope, no, it ain't. As it scream and drag.
Oh, man.
But it is what it is. Richard says, I use the improved clinch knot and no knot snail. That's it. The no knot snail is garbage in my book. Daddy likes it.
That's all I use. And I've caught some monster fish, and I have yet to have one fail on me.
Daddy likes it. I just don't like it. I prefer tying a regular snail, or I don't know what kind of snail
Well, your
it
daddy
is.
is a better fisherman, though. So, I mean.
But he can't tie knots. That's y'all's problem. Y'all just can't tie knots.
Hey, it works. It's never failed. I don't care.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in it, boy.
And as far as the improved clinch knot, I don't even do an improved clinch knot. I just do a clinch knot. I don't worry about feeding that tag in back through. It's probably a better knot, and you're probably better off to tie an improved clinch knot. It's just the first knot Daddy ever taught me, and we didn't even call it a clinch knot. I think he called it a figure 8 knot because he taught me to do it 8 wraps. And that's just the first knot I ever learned, and I'm comfortable tying it because I've been tying it forever, and I tie it a lot. I use it a lot.
So. Yeah, when I was young, that's the only knot we knew.
Yeah.
Are you throwing your craft away?
It does. Patience and fairness does pay off. You got to be a patient person when out catfishing, don't you, Jerry? Because I've seen you have some slow days, and then you were patient and persistent. That word you mentioned earlier, persistent. And by the end of the stream, you done set the world on fire.
Well, that's the whole thing about bank fishing. It's a waiting game. Unless you are able to pick up and constantly move, it's a game of patience, and you're kind of waiting for the fish to come to you in some cases, and it may not be until later in the night or later in the day. It's just, it's a game of, there is a lot of patience involved,
It is. And then when you lose that patience, and I don't know, when you lose that patience and you just, you leave, you give up too quick, it's not long till you just don't really care nothing about going. And, the thing of it is, there's some days, whether I catch a fish or not, it was just relaxing being out there, going out there.
And I'll be the first to admit, like on some of our, like, especially like when we're doing the river rats and I'm not hosting, you'll catch me. I'm just kicked back, watching the river, just enjoying myself. That's my happy place, Yep. Yes. So.
Well, I can tell you what, some days it doesn't bother me not to get that many bites, but this past Saturday, I was ready to give up fishing. I was so mad. I told Daddy, I said, if this keeps happening like this, I'm done fishing. I was mad. I was ready. I'll take the rods that I bought and I'll throw them overboard, and you can see if you can snag them back. I'm done with it. And it turned out to be a really blessed day. But we had the weirdest bite of any day we've ever had. I bet we had 20 takedowns. I mean, not the tip doing this, takedowns that as soon as we put pressure up, got the rod out the reel down on, got the rod out the rod holder, they just let go. And we'd get the bait in, and we weren't using baits that were maybe that big. And you could see just the bottom half of that skipjack segment or that shad, we were using both, was just stripped of all its scales. They were just coming up and just barely grabbing it and trying to run with it. They weren't inhaling it. And it was really frustrating because we were fishing a tournament. It was our first tournament that was being held here on Barren River Lake. And it was 3 hours in and we were skunked. And I was like, oh my God, this is awful. I don't care if we win. I want to win, but I just don't want to finish last. I don't want to go back to weigh-ins and then people say, well, how many inches of fish did you catch? Because it was a length-based tournament. And I say, well, we caught 0. I didn't want to do it. And it turned out we ended up winning it. We got on some fish. We got a lot of takedowns, but only put 6 in the boat. But our 3 biggest was enough to get us first place. But It was a really frustrating day of fishing. And it's, I learned when fishing those tournaments, we actually had a guy catch it. We had 2 people catch their new PB. 16-year-old boy, and I couldn't have been happier for him. He caught a 44-pounder.
Nice.
And but it was the only fish they caught that day. So his inches just didn't add up to enough to get in the money. And then the guy who come in third caught his new PB. He caught a 55-pounder, which was a 47-inch fish. But his only other fish he caught that day was a little channel cat that was like 16 inches long. So he only got up to third. Our big fish of the day was smaller than everybody else's big fish of the day, but all 3 of our fish were a consistent size. So it added up to more, So I learned in those tournaments, having that one big fish is going to be great, but you want to try to get some consistency down too.
Yes.
So Hook said wins his own tournament. Yes, I was the one holding the tournament, and I won. I lost money on that tournament holding it, so I was definitely fishing it. I didn't verify my own fish, and if anybody that fished it has any issues, the video will be out. They can watch what we caught. So that ain't a problem. Chris just likes to aggravate.
Big does. Yeah.
Big Wrench said rigged. So when I was the first one I had somebody else verify my fish. I turned my pictures into somebody else, and they wrote it, and I had 88 inches. I said, I doubt I'm even in the money. And then after checking everybody else's stuff, we ended up in first. I couldn't believe it, but it was just a really hard day for everybody. Go ahead, Daddy, read it.
Uncle Jeep says, see there, there's your problem, Cody. You were skunked. Try the tomato juice before you go fishing. Fish can taste that stink. And how the heck is your wife allowing you in the house smelling like it?
Your nose must be stopped up. And actually, Kentucky Catfishing just released a video of him fishing the tournament that day. If somebody could, please drop a link to Kentucky Catfishing. He's got a great channel. He's trying to grow it. Anybody that could go over, show him some support, I would appreciate it. So I watch his channel. I watched his video as soon as he released it this morning. I watch all his stuff. So I think y'all like it. Go check him out. But let's get back to Jerry here. We'll get off the topic of us. And Jerry, what would you say? So you told us what beginner tips you would have. What is an advanced tip? Something for somebody who's been fishing, say, 10 years. They've caught a lot of 20, 30, 40-pound fish, but they're wanting to step their game up and help with either consistency or finding that one monster.
The biggest thing for the Mississippi, the 2 biggest things, current and big baits. Because if you're targeting blues, your bigger blues are a current. They love that swift current. So don't be afraid to get into that swift current and use big baits. When I'm talking big baits, I'm talking like, pound up to 2-pound baits. Don't be afraid to throw those big baits. But with that being said, make sure you have the right gear to handle it too.
So when you're throwing a big bait like that, do you do a double hook rig or do you just fish a single hook?
Most of the time, I try to throw just a single hook because I'm always worried about the welfare of the fish. Because sometimes in big blues, we'll slam bait or sometimes they'll inhale it, and I don't want to get that fish hooked in the gills or anything. But there are times if I'm just throwing like a freakishly large bait, I will run a double hook rig.
Run that stinger, and so you just put one through the mouth of say you're running a whole bait in those instances, put one through the nose and one back next to the butt of the
around the dorsal somewhere. Yep.
All right.
So
and Big Wrench says reverse current, and I know you fish reverse eddies is what I've always called them.
Yep. I always look for that drift and debris, that foam line. Just that's one thing you got to learn how to read the water. You just watch the debris. And there's been times I've been on a wing dike or something, and I'll take a stick and chunk it out there and watch what it does. Just to see what it does out there on the surface, and I'll give you a good idea, like what it's doing. Because sometimes you'll throw that bait way out in the main channel, next thing you know, it gets sucked all the way to the inside.
Right.
So
Well, I know earlier you were talking about using circle hooks mainly, but you would use, I guess, a J hook sometime. So, and you're talking about using big baits. When you're using a big bait like that, what size hook are you using, and maybe what brand of hook do you like to use?
well, right now I'm using the Triple City gear, where I'm sponsored through Triple City Anglers, and I've been using their hooks for a while now, and I love them. But we actually had a discussion. Haz was like, "What would you guys like to see?" And immediately, like me and Jeremy DeFore were like, "Donkey hooks." Cause I'd like to have at least a 13-aught hook, size circle hook, for throwing those big baits. I look for a wide gap circle, but a thinner wire circle.
Yes.
I do not like a heavy gauge, because your heavy gauge circle hook, that's saltwater stuff. You need that thinner wire gap, because your bigger cat have got a lot of meat around the corner of their mouth, so you need something that's going to penetrate.
Right.
Yeah, and you might get one in the tooth pad, and it's not always just perfectly in the corner. If you get one in the tooth pad, you don't want something so thick that it takes a lot of pressure to get it to penetrate. Yeah, and
that's right, Danny. Trying to sabotage you, babe.
At every chance he gets. So you're talking about a 13-aught hook. So you're talking about an inch and a half gap, inch and a half gap.
Oh yeah, inch and a half, every bit of it. Yep, and an offset. I like an offset hook circle when I'm using them big baits too.
So do you use you use Triple City stuff. So do you use spooks?
Okay, I use the spooks if I'm in a slower current situation, or if I'm fishing a creek mouth or back up in a creek. I don't use them off the wing dikes for the simple fact that them spooks you get out of that current, they're doing this. They're spiraling, because you got anywhere from 6 and 8 mile an hour current coming off those wing dikes. So all I think going to do is this. But if I am in a situation where I have slacker water, 100% I will throw a spook. Just the fact because it gets that bait up off the bottom, gets more scent dispersed, and plus you got a little rattle. And I'll be honest, I don't think the color really matters, too much, because most times you're fishing really muddy or stained conditions. But with that being said, I have fished areas with some bigger channel cat and had like a chartreuse peg float or something, and I've had them crush the peg float before.
Yep.
Right.
So
I've had blue cats do it. I've had blue cats just smack the float, pull the float. Back when we used foam floats, they'd come back in and they was just pancaked.
mm-hmm.
For sure.
So, and I run my float, my Demon Dragon, a decent ways away from my hook, because like you were talking about, they inhale it. I don't want them to inhale that float if I can help it, because I don't want that to hold their mouth open when the hook gets pulled up there. So I leave a pretty good distance.
I usually leave about 8 inches, behind my is what I usually set up. And as far as like wing, it's all going to depend. Like in the winter right now, if I'm fishing, I'm only running them probably an 18 to 24 inch leader. And in the summer, if I'm in a creek or something, I'll run up to a 4-foot leader.
Yeah, we run, which we don't change it a lot in the winter. We run about a 36-inch leader year round, and a lot of people see it and they're like, "Wow, that's really long," because you hold it up there. 3 foot's a pretty good length on a leader. Sometimes even up in the 40-inch range, and but we get a lot of bites on it and it works. So.
But you got to remember, we're dragging also, and I'm sure in the current, same way, it's pulling it down.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And Brad says, keep mine a minimum of 4 inches from the hook. Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb.
Yep.
It at a very minimum to hand width.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prefer somewhere around that 5-6 inch mark for me. But minimum a hand width. Just get that hook on. And I know that some people like putting that float or that spook or demon dragon all the way against the hook because they say it hangs up less when dragging. That I'm sure is true, but I
you're going
think
to miss
that
a lot of fish.
I think it comes at the cost of losing or lowering your hookup ratio. I'll just hang up more and get a better hookup ratio.
Yeah. Well, if you're not losing gear, you're not fishing the right spots. It's kind of, that's like I said, if I'm not losing gear, which it's not, you don't have the structure and stuff when you're needing a lot of times to hold fish.
So, well, and since we're on the topic of gear, if anybody wants to order Demon Dragons, we've got a promo code. It is 3+120. That link is in the description. If you're wanting to support Triple City Angler, Jerry, I think, has a promo code.
Parker 10.
Parker 10. And they sell Ancient Mariner reels and everything, right?
Ancient Mariner, luge reels, and pin reels, and all your time. And also, if you guys need any good rod holders, takedown rod holders, you can get discount Parker 10 through them too.
Oh, awesome. So anybody in chat that's wanting to buy any of those products, there you go. So thanks for sharing that with the chat there. So is there anything we hadn't touched on that you think would be great for the people in chat to know?
There's something I would like to ask, just so I can get Parker's take on it. So I know you bank fish and you fish a river a lot. Is there a certain style sinker that you like to use more than others?
I use a typical, mostly your coin sinkers and bank sinkers are the two style sinkers I use mostly. And when I'm really having to launch a bait out there, I prefer the bank style sinkers. But if I'm not having to launch a bait as far, I like the coin style sinkers. So, but like Brad, he has style of bank sinker that's kind of a almost pyramid shaped at the bottom, and that thing has really good holding power.
Yeah, if we're anchored up, we almost always use coin sinkers. Not really worried about casting distance in a boat. If I want it to be way over there, we'll just pull way over there, So casting distance ain't a big thing, and I think coin sinkers hold really well. I really like how they work. But almost always that we're out fishing, we're using dragon weights. And SS Jello Chicken was in here at the beginning of the night. He is who pours all our lead and makes all our dragon weights. So and he'll have a website up soon enough, and we'll have all that information for everybody. So Asleep at the Reel, welcome in. I still think that's like the coolest name on YouTube. Asleep at the Reel. I really like it.
That's a cool name.
And Brad says, flat banks are my favorite and use over coins most of the time when they're 6+. Okay.
Right. Especially the minimum I normally use in most of the spots I fish is 8 ounces. That's like my minimum. And a lot of times I'm throwing up to 14 to 15 ounces of lead.
Yeah, we never use that much lead.
Off the wing dikes and stuff. So
we have 8-ounce sinkers in the boat we've never used.
Yeah. Never touch it. Oh, look here. Randall just sent me a picture of the graph. He's got a hog sitting below him. It looks like a good one. So, but anyway, sorry I got off track there. Somebody sending me stuff about fishing. I got to look at it.
oh yeah, it's easy to do.
Go ahead. Hey, if there's anything you think we should tell, because I know we had a couple people asking about like beginner's advice and intermediate advice. What's something that we hadn't went over you think that you'd like to let them know?
Pay attention to like the big thing. I pay attention to like the wildlife, the birds and stuff. The birds will tell you a lot. Your seagulls, your herons, and if you're lake fishing, those wind-swept banks. I love fishing those wind-swept banks in a lake situation. Whether I'm catfishing, bass fishing, crappie, that's one of the things I really fish, especially this time of the year. It forces that bait fish up there. So, and if you do a lot of river fishing, learn how to read your river graph and pay attention to what's upstream, because that's what's going to affect you in the coming days. Like Creel, he has it dialed down where, like, when it hits Danny and Richard, he knows just about exactly when that level is going to come up. So I'm usually looking at the graph up around Keokuk, Iowa, is where I'm looking at, ahead of time to see what I have coming in the future.
Okay.
In which we had a 24 or 25 foot rise in the river in a matter of just about a 5-day period. And now we are it's dropping like a roller coaster. And it's not going to level out until this coming weekend. Like last Sunday, we were fishing falling river conditions. And that's one thing that I hate is a fast fall and a fast rise is fishing. So, and ideally a slow rise, that's where it's at.
Yep. Love a slow rise.
Yes.
And Danny Stone says, when is Parker planning his next saltwater fishing trip?
August. We will be in Orlando, Florida in August. So I will be doing some saltwater fishing down there and probably fishing also some of those canals down there too. So,
well, and I know my wife booked us a condo for the first week in October for Gulf Shores. And then I think Mama actually booked us all a family vacation in May.
May, I think. Yeah.
So we're going to be down in the Gulf Shores area surf fishing in May, and we'll be back out there first week of October.
Pompano and stuff ought to be running really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
October, we do great on Pompano right there at the beginning of October. We catch quite a few redfish. I mean, not
catching them big old bull reds. Love catching them big old bull reds.
So, but like if it's not a hardhead or a stingray, I'm happy to catch it, and I'm okay with catching a stingray or two. But there was days last year we went and we caught like 7-8 stingray each, and I'm talking about like 50-60 pound stingray. And we're catching them on our pompano rigs, so you can't horse them. And it's just like, okay, he turned into a rock. Let's sit here for a minute.
Now, stingray is a phenomenal shark bait. Like for your tiger shark, we actually got a video. I got a video where we was fishing in Pensacola, and we caught an 11-foot tiger shark off the beach on a trash can size stingray.
Well, we went out on a bow fishing trip for stingray down there, and the guide said, "Hey, y'all want to take some of these stingray to eat?" We're like, "Nah, we don't want any." He's like, but we'd been talking about we'd been surf fishing. He said, "Y'all shark fishing?" And he said, "Yeah, we've caught some sharks." He said, "Stingray is an amazing shark bait." So
Yes,
we had him give us one. We cut the head section out of it and put it on a hook, and you won't believe it. What I caught on that. Take a guess. I'll let you guess.
Big old bull red.
A big old stingray.
Big old.
I turned a chunk of stingray about, 6 by 6 inches into one that was about 2.5, 3 foot wide.
Wow.
I said, oh man. I thought, it's going to be a good shark. Oh man, I got to keep tension on him. I don't want my leader to get back into his mouth. And then he buried himself up. And I said, this ain't a shark, is it? Got it in, and it was a friggin' stingray. Doesn't eat that big chunk of stingray.
That's crazy.
Now, I will say about stingrays, like Cody said, they'll suck to the bottom. You just got to hold tension on until they come back up. But I caught a cow nose stingray last year down there. That thing was a tremendous fight. It never sucked to the bottom. It ran the whole time, stripping drag. I mean, I was down. I thought it was going to spoil me. And I finally got it turned and ended up getting it in. But I think it took me over 20 minutes to get it in.
Yeah, 26 minutes.
Get one runs. Woo. Yeah. Nope.
Yeah.
We snag them off the piers down, and we'll keep a snagging rig, and like on the Intercoastal Canal, and you'll see them cow nose or those bat nose rays cruise, and we'll keep a snagging rig, and we'll snag them, and then we keep a grapple hook. Hook them and pull them up, and that's like when we're shark fishing. That's what we run our baits out with kayaks.
Right.
Well, I don't want to run over Chad's show. We've been going for an hour. Daddy's gonna pray us out. We'll say our goodbyes to everybody, and then we'll send y'all over to check out Chad.
All right. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this day, Lord. Thank you for all these wonderful people in the chats, Lord. Thank you for Jerry Parker coming on and sharing his knowledge with us. Lord, we just ask your blessings upon our lives. We ask that you just place a hedge of safety around us and just be the guiding light beneath our feet. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
God bless y'all.
Yep. And if you
Bless
get
you.
a chance throughout your week, say a prayer for Danny Stone and his grandkids and his family. For anybody that missed it last night, Danny's grandkids lost their house. They got off the school bus to their mom standing in the front yard with the baby in her hands and the house burning to the ground. There was no loss of life other than the pets, which is not a small loss of life, but
No.
we're thankful that all the grandbabies were safe and that their mother was safe. But they lost everything. Keep them in your thoughts and prayers. If there's anything you can do to help out, just reach out to Danny Stone. Danny, I'll say it again. If there's anything I can do, if there's anything you need help, they need help buying, if it's in my means, just hit me up. I will do everything I can to help out. We love you, brother, and you're in our thoughts and prayers. Next week, we will not be live on Thursday night because we'll be on our way back from Alabama. Monday through Thursday, we are going to be in Alabama fishing. We'll probably do a few live streams there from the water. River Rat show is coming up. Y'all ain't back to Saturday yet, are y'all?
Not yet, but no show this weekend.
Oh, okay, sorry.
There's a lot of stuff going on YouTube, and it's just like, you know what, we're going to bypass this week, but we will be live next weekend, and I believe Richard's hosting. And guys, once we hit our 50th episode, if we make it to 50th episode, no skunk show, we are going to do a special show. So far, I think we've done 39 episodes without a single skunk show yet. So if we make it to 50, we're going to do a special show for you guys.
There you go. Like I said, Parker's link is in the description. Be sure to go check him out. It's also Parker Pursuits on TikTok. Go check him out there. Thank y'all all for being here. Y'all made today a blessed day. Be sure to hit that thumbs up on your way out and go check out Chad Fields at Fields to Water over on his channel. As we always say, it's God, family, and the great outdoors. God bless, and see you next time.
Y'all have a good one.